Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Filling in for the doctor, Brian Sussman here on the left coast. Glad to be behind the microphone. Always a privilege, always an honor. 855-400-7282. That's the number. 855-400-SAVAGE. Michael Savage's book, Government Zero, debuts number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list. If you haven't bought a copy, shame on you. Government Zero. No borders, no language, no culture. No borders, no language, no culture. It's amazing. I'm looking over all the things I hope to talk about over the next few hours. And it all fits neatly within this theme. No borders, no language, no culture. Michael Savage sounded the alarm. How these progressives and radical Islamists are working together towards a similar goal. Destroy Western civilization. We're seeing it before our very eyes. This is the big story today, and it fits neatly into that package. No borders, no language, no culture, Government Zero. Obama's officially rejected the Keystone Pipeline. He announced it today. You'll hear some of the sound in just a moment, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. When you hear what Obama has to say, it makes no sense. He's rejected TransCanada's application to build the Keystone XL pipeline. It's his big gift to the environmental community, and more importantly, it's his big gift to OPEC. His big gift to OPEC. Do you even know who the OPEC nations are, my friend? Do you know who they are? Tell me if these are countries that have our best interest in mind. May we just go through the list? Venezuela. When you think America, do you think Venezuela? When you think American values, do you think Venezuela? How about United Arab Emirates? How about Saudi Arabia? How about Qatar, Nigeria, Libya, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, Ecuador, Angola, Algeria? That's OPEC. Gift to OPEC today from Barry Obama. What do you know? We'll talk about that. Another story in the news. Most people don't even understand what this is all about, but it's huge. Oh, that House of Representatives, run by Republicans, don't you know? So the House today rejected an amendment that it would have prohibited the Export-Import Bank. The what? I want to know about the Kardashians. The Export-Import Bank from providing loans, loan guarantees, and credit to state sponsors of terrorism. In other words, the House of Representatives are saying, let's keep the door open. If Obama wants to loan a little money, give a little money away to a state sponsor of terrorism such as Iran, that's all good with us. Come on. This is just amazing. Just amazing. We'll talk about the Export-Import Bank. What a joke this is. I mean, you know, Obama, here he is. He's killing the Keystone Pipeline, right? Kills the Keystone Pipeline, which would have provided for real jobs. Some would say, yes, but they're just temporary jobs. Well, okay, temporary jobs. Oh, you'll hear Obama. He said, what we really need to do is invest in infrastructure in this country. What was the Keystone Pipeline? It's infrastructure. And it's infrastructure that's not paid for by the taxpayer. It's paid for by a Canadian company. Yes, some of the jobs will be temporary in terms of the construction, but there will be long-term jobs along the way, and it will better communities, and it will make us less reliant on other sources of oil. That's exactly what would happen. Import-Export Bank. Okay? We'll talk about that. Oh, well, it was just a matter of time, wasn't it? ExxonMobil is being investigated by the New York Attorney General's office for climate crimes. See, you got to get this book by Savage. Government Zero. No borders, no language, no culture. You see what's happening here? We're being attacked by our very own government. We're being attacked by our very own president. So now we've got the New York Attorney General's office going into the company's record on climate change. ExxonMobil. And it's kind of interesting how all of this occurred. Now Hillary Clinton's quickly piling on. Oh, of course she's piling on. She's calling for an investigation as well. isn't it rather interesting that her investigation comes at a time where, looking at last year, Exxon didn't give the Clinton Foundation any money? I'm not making this up. Then you got Bernie Sanders out there, Bernie, who, and I agree with Michael on this. Bernie is only running because Hillary wants him to. Look at all the candidates. They're all being selected by Hillary because it's in Hillary's best interest to have a guy who's an admitted socialist running so she looks a little more centrist. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is out there talking it up as well. Says the United States should curb fossil fuels. That's it. We'll curb them. Let's make lots of money for those green investors out there. There's one guy that's making so much sense today. You'll hear from him. I've met him on one occasion. He's a seemingly nice man. Dana Rohrabacher. Most of you around the country have never heard of him. He's a Republican representative from Southern California. You got 435 of these people in the House of Representatives. You can't keep track of them all. Some of them are good guys. Most of them are schmoes. My opinion. How do we come up with these people? We got 310 million people in this country, and you look in Washington, D.C., and this is the best we can do? Really? Anyway, Dana Rohrabacher. See, it's as if he read Government Zero. You're going to hear a quote from him a little bit later in the program where he says, what we are witnessing is the destruction of Western civilization. And what is he talking about? Well, he's talking about all these various things, but specifically he's talking about this flow of the Syrian refugees into Germany. Isn't it interesting? You know, every generation or two you get a German leader who decides to wreck Europe. And I think that's what we have in that of Angela Merkel. Oh, then a story. And again, Brian Sussman filling in for Michael Savage. And the phone number is 855-400-SAVAGE. I have a morning show in San Francisco on KSFO. That's Mike's flagship station, the station that he really built with his show when it launched in the 90s. 21 years ago, I believe. And I was a listener to his program then. But so now I host the morning show on that station. Anyway, long story short, we talked about this morning. And it's not getting proper coverage. If Savage were here, he'd tee off on this big time. But this has to do with the young freshman at UC, that would be University of California, Merced. It's just amazing to me. Have you noticed that ISIS and the Palestinian and others, from that particular sect, this very peaceful religious people sect, have you noticed they've got all these training videos out now on how to kill somebody with a knife? And if you watch the videos, they're actually, it's kind of like a step 1, step 2, step 3, boom, they're dead. Move on. So now we have a young man in Merced, California, named Faisal Muhammad, who tries to kill 4 people with a knife. Oh, no coincidence. No. I mean, this is strictly coincidence. There's nothing here to see. Move away. No, this isn't terrorism. No. I mean, immediately they tell us it's not terrorism. No, he was upset because he got kicked out of a study group. That's what they're saying. Study group. So if he was kicked out of the study group, why didn't he target people in the study group? Instead, he goes after a cop. Instead, he goes after a construction worker. And he goes after a couple kids on campus. He gets shot dead in the process. But I'm just kind of wondering, how did they know so quickly that, no terrorism here? No. Quote from the sheriff, there are lots of people of the Muslim faith that are kind, gentle, and loving. One person who commits a crime can't be grouped into that hole. Oh, thank you, Mr. Sheriff. The sheriff also goes on to call what this guy did silly. And when this guy invoked Allah in the process because he was carrying a manifesto, the likes of which they haven't released, but they did say it included Allah. The sheriff actually goes so far as to say, well, if I committed some silly act like this, I'm a Christian, so I'd probably say something about Jesus. What? We're not stupid. Oh, look away. Go ahead. Nothing here. Unbelievable. So we'll talk about that. But what they're calling this is the knife intifada. Palestinians, ISIS. Oh, and by the way, regarding the kid in Merced, just want to let you know, little footnote. Hello. The footnote is, as soon as this kid's name was released, who was there thanking him for what he did? ISIS. They tweeted out a praise to this guy as soon as his name was released. Do you think maybe he'd been in touch with ISIS in any way, shape, or form? Do you think just maybe? No, look away. There's nothing here. Knife intifada. That's what they're calling it. ISIS, Palestinians, etc. They're calling it the knife intifada. And it's a type of suicide attack. It's just what this kid did. Just what he did. The killer stabs as many people as he can before he's shot. It's a suicide attack. That's what this kid did. He killed as many people as he could before he got shot. The Palestinians are doing that. This kid did it. I'd like to know a little bit more about this background, this Faisal Muhammad. I'm just kind of curious, as to where his family might come from. And I'm curious also, when did they arrive in this country? I sure hope there's some investigating going on. Oh, no, case is already closed. Yeah, case is closed. No terrorism here. Let's move on. Got that in the news. Some other stuff. Oh, this is another one. Again, no borders, no language, no culture, government zero. Story coming out today about an illegal alien accused of a fatal hit and run. Yeah, guy in this country who had been deported 6 times. Okay, so Donald Trump, there's a little more to what this guy's saying, folks. I'm just telling you, we need somebody in the White House. We need people in the House of Representatives. We need people in the Senate that know what time it is. And what time is it? It's government zero time. We need a government that will protect our borders and our language and our culture. Buy the book. Go to a bookstore. Go to michaelsavage.com. Go to amazon.com. Buy this book. All right, we've got the callers coming up. Brian Sussman. Always a pleasure to get behind this microphone and fill in for Michael Savage. 855-400-SAVAGE. That's 855-400-7282. Brian Sussman on this, The Savage Nation. Brian Sussman in for Savage, The Savage Nation. 855-400-SAVAGE. That's the number. Government zero. I'm going to read a portion of government. This is a great book. I've enjoyed this book. I knew it was going to be a blockbuster. And quite frankly, I knew it would be top on the New York Times bestseller list. It debuted at number 3. You got to get a copy of this book. I'm going to read a portion coming up in the next segment here on The Savage Nation. Something that Mike talks about a lot, something that I talk about a lot, and we were just talking about it. And that is this German refugee crisis. It's pretty sick what's happening with this particular crisis. And the fact of the matter is, the Germans started this. They defied the European Union laws, and they allowed this to occur. And I don't quite understand. In the beginning we heard, well, they want cheap labor. They've got a problem. They've created, it's literally like a human train coming up from the Middle East and North Africa. And it's impacting the other countries around them. I have a son that was planning on spending a year in Switzerland on a particular project. Guess what? The Swiss said, sorry, nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to our country because we got this crisis. We don't want these people here, so we're not allowing anybody in. See, there are still some countries around the world that really take immigration seriously. We don't. But that's government zero. No borders, no language, no culture. So I'm going to read a portion from that in just a moment. But it's just amazing to me. What is Merkel doing? What is Merkel doing? Every generation or two, there's a German leader that decides to destroy Europe, and that's what she's doing. This is going to be the death of Western civilization. Because when you look at how many kids the Europeans are having these days, I've heard Savage talk about this, 0.5, maybe 1 child per family? And then you look at these people coming from those places and how many kids they have. It's just like Yasser Arafat, head of the PLO, once said, paraphrasing, we will defeat you with our wombs. But I do want to go to the callers right now in the Savage Nation. David is calling from Michigan. David, you're on the air. You're first up. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about the German situation where they're allowing the Syrian refugees in. And I don't think it's fair for the Germans and their population to put up with it. And I went to the Der Spiegel website, that's the German newspaper, and they're portraying their own citizens as hate mongers. And they're just concerned. But they didn't say that. They're Spiegel has them as hate mongers. What's Germany to do with their hateful population? I thought it was sickening because that could have been anywhere in America, could have been anywhere.
Oh, yeah, sure. Because anybody, for example, perhaps you and I, if we had a conversation regarding our border, or look what's happening with the presidential debate and the things that Donald Trump has said. Oh, he's a hater. You get these kids making videos, little kids. I don't know if you've seen the video or not. These kids, 6, 7, 8 years old, little Latin kids, F-bombing Donald Trump, flipping him off. And it's angry and it's mean and it's sickening, and how their parents could ever allow them to do this, and how the directors of this video could ever allow this to happen. It's hateful. That's the hate. We're concerned about our country. We want to maintain our borders, our language, our culture. We want to have something left 50, 60, 100, 200, 300 years from now. But at the rate we're going, it's going to be over before we know it, unless somebody does something.
You hit the nail on the head with the birth rates. It's very low for the Western European cultures, the culture that carries on this classical civilization that handed down symphony music, alphabet, reading and writing, arithmetic, architecture, forks, aqueducts, you name it. We passed it on. And what I see today is, with the advent of all this immigration, is it's going downhill fast. You can look at our SAT scores nationwide. It never used to be like that. You pick up a book from the 1800s, and you look at what they were teaching the kids back then. The kids today couldn't even...
we're illiterate. We're completely illiterate when you make that kind of a comparison. I appreciate your call here on the Savage Nation. It's true. It's true. But the point is, my friends, government zero. No borders, no language, culture. We have arrived. Now, how do we get out of this mess? Can't wait to take more of your calls. It's one of the great pleasures I have when I get behind this microphone for Savage, speaking to people from all over the country. And we'll do that when we continue. We've still got a lot of time to go. Don't forget michaelsavage.com for all your news needs. Again, Brian Sussman filling in on this, the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Brian Sussman in for Michael Savage. michaelsavage.com, Government Zero, available now, number 3 in the New York Times bestseller list, and it will only rise. Can I read just a portion to you from the book? Because it just so neatly fits into everything we've been talking about on the Savage Nation. All of the news basically validates what Michael's written. There's a dance of death in the West, and actual death in the Middle East, courtesy of the Islamofascists. Meanwhile, the Caesar in the White House entertains himself with 1,000 sycophants, partying on behind closed doors as if the Islamofascists' hand will not touch him. He thinks he's protected from this new plague, the Black Death of radical Islam. We're facing something the West hasn't had to deal with since the wars of religion in the 16th and 17th centuries. When those religious wars ended in one place, they began in another. They lasted for over 100 years. The same thing is happening right now. The radical Muslims are on the warpath, and they're against everyone else. They're against Muslims who are not as fanatical. They're against members of all other religions. They think they're going to take us back to some pristine religious period in human history that never actually occurred. Government Zero. Michael Savage. So what's happening today? Our government, Government Zero, is ignoring that there's even an ISIS. We're not doing anything. We're doing nothing. That JV team is growing in size. It's metastasizing before our very eyes. Nothing to protect us from it at this point in time. I look at the Egyptian, the Russian plane that goes down in Egypt. Oh, the media was bending over backward to assure us, no, couldn't have been terrorism. Absolutely not. And then media reports started coming out regarding how the airplane was reacting prior to going down, etc. And I'm not a rocket scientist. I just happened to say on the air on my little program on KSFO in San Francisco, maybe there could have been a bomb on the plane. Hello, duh. And now that seems to be the chatter. Maybe there was a bomb on the plane. How could that have happened? You mean somebody might have been able to sneak onto the tarmac or maybe get through security to get on the plane? Well, yeah. You really think our airports are that safe? We had a story in San Francisco just today with 3 people working for TSA were involved in drug smuggling. They had drug smugglers who were these were the guys operating the X-ray machines, examining your carry-ons. They were letting drug smugglers come through. How many times? There's another story that keeps popping up here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have this woman. I don't know if you've heard about this or not. This woman repeatedly is able to get through all security at the airport, San Jose Airport, San Francisco Airport. She gets right through security. She has no identification on her. She gets right through security and then gets on planes and flies to other places. She's just this little old lady. I don't know how she does it, but she's done it many times. Flies all over the country. Gets caught, does it again. So we're supposed to believe that TSA, Department of Homeland Security, they've all got it handled. Come on, give me a break. Give me a break. And then we look at what's happening in Germany, and we look at what's happening in Europe, and we look at what's happening in the Middle East and North Africa. All of this under President Obama's watch. And what's he out there doing today? Well, we killed the Keystone Pipeline. Yeah, and in killing the Keystone Pipeline, you not only killed American jobs, by the way, union jobs, you also gave a gift to OPEC. You gave a gift to OPEC. Let's go to Timmy, WABC New York. Timmy, you're on the Savage Nation. Thanks for checking in. Brian Sussman filling in for Michael.
Hi, this is Jimmy from Brooklyn. Bernie Sanders makes Hillary Clinton look moderate, just as you said, but that's the same way ISIS makes Al-Qaeda look more moderate. That's called the Marxist dialectic. They control both sides of the issue. It's like when Stalin was in charge, he supported the Nazis. So you had the Nazi-Communist coalition for a while. Same way today, you have Christians and radical Islam working together. It's the penetration of the religions and the culture by the Marxists following the strategies of Antonio Gramsci. So Putin is at the head of the communist movement. At the same time, he's supporting the world Nazi movement. This is absolutely incredible. It's the
dialectic. The dialectic. No, I appreciate your call, Jimmy. The dialectic. Well, it is interesting. We have strange bedfellows. And you're right. ISIS and Al-Qaeda, apples and oranges. Hillary and Bernie, apples and oranges. At the end of the day, Hillary and Barack, apples and oranges. I know we have this thing in the Constitution. Hillary was out there talking about it, I think, on one of the comedy shows last night. Trying to be funny, trying to be relevant. And, of course, they all yucked it up for her, carrying the water for this lady. But she said, you know, in the Constitution, you can only have 2 terms. Oh, really? They found a way around the Constitution. This will be the Clintons' 3rd term. She gets elected, it's the Clintons' 3rd term. Actually, it's Barack Obama's 3rd term. Do you see what they're doing to us? They're going to stick a fork in this country. Let's continue. Ruth, KSFO San Francisco. Ruth, talk to me about the German refugee crisis. Go ahead, please.
Refugees in a village of 500 people that has been there for centuries.
Wait, Ruth, start over again. We clipped off the beginning of your conversation. Start again.
What I was going to tell you, I think it's important. With regard to the refugees in Germany, I was Skyping with my friend, and she told me that it's a horrible situation there in that they moved 900 refugees into a small village of 500 people, which means for centuries these people have been there, and now they're totally outnumbered in this village by these 900 refugees. There is a home in Dusseldorf that is of historical value there and held only for special occasions. It's rented out, etc. And they have put a number of people in that particular home. So these are just 2 examples.
Oh, yeah, 2 examples. I'll give Ruth, I thank you for your call. Angela Merkel may as well be Barack Obama in drag. Seriously. They're both fundamentally changing their part of the world. I saw another story coming out of Germany. A town of 170 has accepted over 700 Muslims. And by the way, it's happening in the United States of America as well. There are towns, I just spoke to a guy, I can't remember the town in Idaho. Maybe some of you folks listening in Idaho can help me out. Small town in Idaho just being completely overrun with refugees. I don't recall if they were from Syria or Somalia, but I can tell you they're from a specific religion. This is what's happening. It's the fundamental transformation of America before our very eyes. Let's continue. Luigi, WABC, wants to talk about the Keystone Pipeline, something we've been talking about extensively, but you want to bring up Obama and Warren Buffett. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. One of the reasons I think that Obama killed the Keystone Pipeline is because, to be honest with you, I believe that Obama and Buffett are in bed together. Buffett owns a rail line. If you don't ship it by pipeline, you got to ship it by truck, but mostly you're going to ship it by rail. Mm-hmm. How many leaks has what type of damage has the environment received from the Alaskan pipeline? He's full of baloney.
He is full of baloney. In fact, the wildlife up there loves the Alaskan pipeline. Thanks for your call. Well, let's see what Obama had to say about this pipeline. This is his big deal. We got ISIS going nuts. We got 5 million people who could be working in America who aren't able to find work. Oh, I know the jobs numbers came out today. They were just rosy, weren't they? What they don't tell us in the breakdown is of those 271,000 Americans who got a job last month, how many of those people got a part-time job? All right. Hey, love to be working full-time. I'm only part-time, but you're counted anyway. How many of those people used to be slaying it in a particular industry and now they're greeting in front of Walmart? Nothing against the Walmart greeters, but I'm just saying. Here's Obama. Give me clip 2 talking about his killing the Keystone Pipeline.
The pipeline would not make a meaningful long-term contribution to our economy. So if Congress is serious about wanting to create jobs, this was not the way to do it. If they want to do it, what we should be doing is passing a bipartisan infrastructure plan that in the short term could create more than 30 times as many jobs per year as the pipeline would, and in the long run would benefit our economy and our workers for decades to come.
Is he slick or stupid? What is he? Is he slick or stupid? Can I just tell you something? The beauty of, infrastructure projects, yes, if we need new infrastructure in this country, who pays for it? It's you and me. Taxpayers pay for it. The taxpayers pay for the infrastructure. Keystone Pipeline would have been paid for by a company in Canada. And there would have been jobs, both temporary to build it and permanent to maintain it. And it would have also brought what Barack Obama, I think he called it, that dirty crude from Canada into the United States to be refined. And, of course, Barack Obama would say, well, that oil probably would be exported. No, we only export 9% of our oil. We use most of what we produce. Just a few little facts, but I know facts get in the way of a story, so let's just move on. Let's continue. We've got Clifton in California calling in. Clifton, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the IRS? Is that what I understand?
My friend. Hey, the bottom line is, Brian, I am so sick and tired of these people insulting my intelligence. You understand what I'm saying? For the last 2 weeks, the 2 biggest stories that the media should have been concentrating on was the fact that Lois, or whatever her name is,
Lois Lerner,
the impeachment guy, and the fact that the 5 people that went before Congress for the VA hearings, all of them pled the fifth, and 2 of them didn't even, they walked them up. They didn't even let them testify. What the hell is going on here, man? I
know this is a guy who has served this country in the military. This VA thing is very near and dear to your heart. Think about this. People pleading the fifth at the DA. We have a DA that's completely out of control. There was a story yesterday. Some guys can't get their VA benefits because the VA said, no, you're dead. The guy's standing right in front of him saying, no, I'm perfectly alive. No, you're dead. Social Security said you're dead. That's why we're not giving you your benefits. This government's out of control, Clifton. Clifton's gone. He got so worked up, he hung up on himself. I want to get back to the sound. This dovetails nicely into Government Zero. It's as if Representative Rohrabacher from Southern California read the book, and he may have, because obviously, if it's number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list, people are reading the book. So he's talking about this growing refugee crisis in Europe, and might I add, here in the United States. Listen to what the good congressman has to say.
Clearly, what we have seen over the past few months is unsustainable and, if not checked, will change the fundamental nature of European countries, which are now being inundated. What we are witnessing is the destruction of Western civilization, not by an armed invasion, but instead through envelopment. The effects of this will not soon disappear, but instead could well turn out to be an historic change in the nature of many European countries.
And might we add the United States of America as well, as Representative Rohrabacher from Southern California. It is, of course, the Savage Nation. Brian Sussman, pleased, proud, happy, thrilled to be filling in behind this microphone as always. Look forward to speaking to you on this, the Savage Nation. Brian Sussman filling in for Michael Savage. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Rhetoric today won out over reason. Misplaced, stupid symbolism was chosen over science. I'm talking about the XL pipeline. You had congressional Democrats, congressional Republicans all wanting this. The unions wanted it. The people wanted it. Everybody wanted it. You know who didn't want it, quite frankly, who didn't want the Keystone Pipeline, besides Barack Obama? Here's who didn't want it, I can tell you. Venezuela, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Nigeria, Libya, Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, Ecuador, Angola, Algeria. Oh, that's OPEC. Obama's gift to OPEC. That's what we saw today. The pipeline is dead. Ron is checking in, WFTL. Ron, go ahead, please. Understand you're a petro worker. Thanks for calling. You're in the industry. What are your thoughts?
That's correct. One of the things that really aggravates me about this president is he's trying to sell to the American people that it's only going to create, that the pipeline itself would only create a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand temporary jobs to build it and to maintain it. But what he doesn't realize, I'm in the petrochemical as well as the power plant industry. For instance, there's a facility in South Texas, one facility that is already building a $3.2 billion cracker, which is a unit for the petrochemical, for the refining of the oil. Whenever they get an influx, all of these facilities are going to have to expand because they're getting so much more crude oil. So all of your Gulf states, Louisiana, Texas, now these are going to have to expand, creating thousands of jobs per facility.
Sure.
Build it. And then to run and to maintain those units, they're going to hire, hundreds per unit. Now these are skilled trade jobs. A welder or a pipe fitter going in to build one of these crackers would make anywhere between $35 and $45 an hour, plus a per diem, because they would probably have to have.
Well, then Ron, and I've got to cut you off because we've got to move on here. We've got to hit a hard break. But the bottom line is, think of all the associated businesses that are required to support this industry and those refineries and this pipeline. You are talking about thousands of jobs, good jobs, and you're talking about us being less dependent on foreign oil. It's all a good thing. But this was Obama's gift to two entities. One, the Muslims who own lots of oil, and two, the Greenies who own the politicians. Brian Sussman on this, the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Awesome to be behind the microphone. Brian Sussman in for Michael Savage. Savage has been burning the candle at both ends because he's got this book that is just rocketing to the top. It debuts number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list, which quite frankly probably means it was number 1. And it's only going to go higher. You got to get Government Zero. You have to get Government Zero. And it's so interesting that so many of the things, no, not so many, all of the things we've been talking about thus far in the Savage Nation have fit neatly into the title of this book, Government Zero. No borders, no language, no culture, no government. No government. No government. I'm going to read to you just a portion. Tons of callers. I will get to those in just a moment. I'm broadcasting from the left coast, KSFO San Francisco. Actually, I'm in my own personal man cave. But loving getting behind the microphone here. And we'll get to your calls in just a moment. And, of course, as you know, the phone number is very easy. It's 855-400-7282. MichaelSavage.com for all your news needs. Government Zero. May I, just for one moment? After over 100 years of progressive assault, writes Michael, we have a situation where the government has become the master and the people its servant. The people are restrained, and the government is free to do anything it wants. The government is all-powerful, and the people are powerless. The government is secret, and the people have no privacy. This is a watershed moment in American history. Look what... Okay, so here's Obama. We've got ISIS on the run, folks. We've got this guy... get him... broadcast him to the San Francisco Bay Area. Kid at a nearby University of California campus. Goes on a rampage. My goodness, it almost fits the template exactly. Let me recant that statement and try it again. It fits the template exactly of what all these Palestinians are promoting in all their videos. How to kill a Jew in 3 easy steps. How to kill an infidel in 3 easy steps. And then the idea is you're like a suicide bomber. You're going to chop, 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 chop. Cop comes, kills you, you're dead. You go to see Allah. Because I will tell you, after this Faisal Muhammad does this on the UC Merced campus, and the cops come out telling us, oh, nothing to see here. Everybody just move along. No terrorism. Absolutely not. See, my colleague, I have a show with a sidekick, Katie Green. When this thing went down at this campus on Wednesday, Katie immediately texts me and says, I think we know who did it. And I said, how do you know? She said, because all the police will tell us is that it's a young man in his 20s. Whenever the cops tell you, young man in his 20s, can I tell you something? Right away, just start connecting the dots, and you can figure out who done it. Tries to stab 4 people. Tries to stab 4 people. Oh, he was disgruntled because he'd been kicked out of a study group. Well, then why didn't he kill the people that tried to kick him out of the study group or attempt to kill them? Instead, he goes after a construction worker, a cop, and 2 other students. As of this morning, one of the people still hospitalized. And then he was shot by the cops. See, he did exactly like they're describing in these videos. He did it all. Did it to a T. Cops are out there saying, no, nothing to worry about here. In fact, let me allow you to listen to the sheriff of Merced County. He sounds like a nice guy. You got to wonder, who's putting him up to say this stuff? People heard this kid's name, Faisal Muhammad. Okay, well, did he proclaim Allah Akbar or anything like that before these attacks took place? What do we know? Oh, he had a manifesto. What was in the manifesto? Well, he referenced Allah. Okay, what did he say about Allah? Clip 6.
I have no other reason to say why he did what he did. We have nothing to indicate. Was he angry? We don't know. There's something personal that something got him, and we don't know what it was. I'd love to be able to tell you what it was, but I don't have it.
Okay, so let's get into this manifesto. What did the manifesto say? Why won't you release that to us? Oh, something about Allah in it? Don't worry, the sheriff says, hey, it's really nothing. Nothing at all. Clip 7.
There was a few references to Allah, and I wanted to tell everybody, as me being a Christian, it would be like me referencing the Lord Jesus. If I'm going to go do something silly, it doesn't mean that I'm anything other than I've got a belief in a higher power, and his belief was through the Muslim faith, but there's still nothing to indicate that there was anything other than that.
Did you hear what this guy just said? Now, if I was going to go out there and do something silly, trying to kill 4 people with a knife, do something silly, and you got a backpack with handcuffs, and you got a backpack with night vision equipment, silly? That's what the sheriff just said? Who's got something on this guy? Silly? And by the way, Mr. Sheriff, I just want to know, how many people have been murdering in the name of Jesus recently? I see people being murdered because they believe in Jesus. How many of them are murdering in the name of Jesus? Man. Government zero at every level, folks. Every level. We've got nothing. We have nothing assuring our safety any longer. And then Obama's out there with all this going on, right? ISIS on the rampage. Economy in the toilet. Oh, but we got the jobs numbers. It's rosy. Absolutely fantastic. He shuts down the Keystone Pipeline. You want to create jobs, temporary and permanent? You want to benefit communities? You want to help out the unions? Had an opportunity, blew it. Instead, he helped out OPEC. Unbelievable. And as Sal's about to tell us from WVFT, he probably helped out a very wealthy investor as well, right, Sal?
Yeah, this whole thing with the Keystone Pipeline was a big play for Warren Buffett, and in an inconspicuous way. Buffett controls a lot of the rail freight in this country, and by allowing the Keystone Pipeline to come through would take away from Warren Buffett's piece of the pie, so to speak. The other incident that happened this week, which was kind of coincidental, was that the federal government delayed the installation of the safety devices on the rail systems for 5 years, did you take my installation of those safety devices that killed a lot of people on the rails last year? So,
Sal, where are you? Sal, where are you right now? Who are you just talking to?
I'm in a Home Depot store right now. I'm gathering some building materials to finish the construction project I'm working on.
Where is WVFT? Where am I speaking to you from?
That's Quincy, Tallahassee, Florida.
Oh, beautiful, 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 beautiful. Sal, thanks for calling out of the Sunshine State. All right, let's get into this. You ready? Are you ready? Import-Export Bank. Problem is, you mentioned this stuff, and there are just so many people who have no clue. This audience has a clue because that's why you listen to Savage. That's why you listen to him via the terrestrial radio station. That's why you listen to him streaming. Do you realize his streaming audience is second to none? No one's ever streamed a radio show like Savage. People listen from all over the world. So, the House of Representatives today. Oh, we've got a Republican-led House, right? Huh? Come on. These are supposed to be the fiscally sane individuals, right? Led by that young man, Paul Ryan, the young guy, one of the young bucks. What do they call him? The young bucks or the young guns? The young guns. Young guns. Yeah, young guns. So Paul Ryan, by the way, I saw Paul Ryan said he wanted to, I'll take the speakership job, but I want to make sure that I continue to be able to spend time with the family. Well, I've seen their schedule for next year. He's going to be spending more time with the family. They're working 111 days in 2016. Maybe that's a good thing. The less they work, the less amount of trouble they can create for the rest of us. Anyway, the House today rejected an amendment. This was Ed Royce from California. He's chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Republican. So he introduced an amendment that would make sure that the Import-Export Bank here in the United States of America would never give a loan out to any country involved in terrorism. Hey, sounds like a plan to me. Like, for example, Iran. And the House rejected it. Oh, that's just wonderful. Thank you, guys. Glad to know what team you're on. Can I tell you about this Import-Export Bank? This is one of the biggest jokes. The import, or I guess it's actually the Export-Import Bank. Obama hates oil, right? Hates big oil. Look what he did with the Keystone. Hates big oil. Hates big oil if it's produced in the United States. But he loves big oil that's produced elsewhere. See, here he says it's all about the environment. We did the right thing. We did the right thing. This is about the environment. So how come, Obama, under your tenure, the Export-Import Bank has given $1 billion to Mexico and their state oil company, which pollutes like nobody's business? And by the way, that was in, what year was that? I just want to make sure I've got my facts correct. So altogether, Obama and the Export-Import Bank, they've given Mexico, I believe, $2 billion in loans for oil, to drill oil, even oil in the Gulf. And on top of that, we've even given money in the form of $2 billion to Brazil's state-owned oil company. So this is easy money on the cheap to these particular companies so they can drill there. In the meantime, Barack Obama's coming out saying we're not going to drill on federal lands here. We're going to shut down the pipeline. Again, it's just another case in point where a rational individual has to step back, at least for a moment, and say, what team is this guy on? What team is he on? Okay, Pat's got a good point. Pat, I'm out here in California. You're checking in from WABC. We need water out here. How about a pipeline of another sort? Pat, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm over here in Connecticut. You know, with Obama sabotaging the oil pipeline, you've heard Governor Brown complaining for the past year about California not having any water. Mm-hmm. Well, is there any particular reason why they can't build a water pipeline from any number of the Great Lakes to California to supply the California residents with water?
I would love it. And Pat, I'll tell you why. It's because of the environmentalists. They want to return California back to nature. That's plain and simple. That's what they want to do. But I appreciate your call on this, the Savage Nation. Speaking of the governor out here in the state of California, Governor Moonbeam, as a lot of people like to refer to him. I'm not sure what Savage's nickname is for Governor Brown, but I'm sure he's got one. The bottom line is this guy's been caught in a big piece of hypocrisy. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Get your calls as well. MichaelSavage.com, the book Government Zero. Brian Sussman filling in on this, the Savage Nation. Brian Sussman filling in for Michael Savage on this, the Savage Nation. Love hearing from you. And, of course, the phone number is 855-400-7282. And the book Government Zero, which we've been talking about, only because it fits so well into the day's news. Folks, we don't have a government doing its job protecting our borders and ensuring that we speak a language that is in keeping with the American ethos and maintaining a culture that has to do with that very same ethos, which has produced great blessing for the world. But we've got a guy in the White House that doesn't see it that way. And so he's doing things like not fighting ISIS, bringing in a lot of people who have no inclination to ever assimilate into our society. And on top of that, and by the way, a lot of you right off the bat say, oh my God, he's a racist. No. I'm just talking about America. We are a nation of immigrants. There are ways to do this legally, lawfully, and intentionally, but apparently he doesn't care about any of that. That's more than an opinion. Just look at the facts. But on top of that, we also have a situation where we've got so much hypocrisy in the name of green and others. I've got the greenest governor in the United States. His name is Jerry Brown. We have such ridiculous plans in place. I think now it's 30% of our energy has to be produced from renewables. And, of course, the renewables cost a lot more. That's why we have the highest energy prices in the country here in California. And who's pushing for the solar and who's pushing for the wind? Well, the investors in solar, the investors in wind, as well as the natural gas companies, because wherever you have a solar installation or wherever you have a wind installation, you have to have a natural gas backup. And the people, by the way, who don't like these things are generally speaking environmentalists themselves, but they are paid off and they keep quiet. We've got this huge solar panel facility down in the Mojave Desert. How they were able to get that one through, I have no idea, because the area where they put this gigantic installation is a place where there are endangered lizards and endangered tortoises, and prior to them installing this solar field, which is huge, people couldn't even walk there. But they installed it anyway. Dianne Feinstein gave them the go-ahead. I'm sure there were some payoffs somewhere behind the scenes. These guys got government grants, low-interest loans from the government. Hey, listen, any investor any investor, and some of you are business people, you know what I'm talking about. It's always better to use other people's money, right? Especially when the other people's money is cheap. So these investors got cheap government money and government grants to build this thing, and they built it. And it's one of the biggest polluters in California. You're saying, how could it be a big polluter? It's a solar field. Well, guess what? It's all hooked up to deliver solar in the day, but at night, there ain't no sunshine. It needs a natural gas backup. Guess what? On cloudy days, it needs a natural gas backup. They did the math. This thing's putting out a lot of CO2, more than most power plants. But on top of that, what's happening is it's so massive, birds. I'm guessing probably even a few endangered condors because they live in that part of our state, these big, massive birds that look like they're from the dinosaur era. And the birds fly across this solar field, and it's so hot that they don't have a chance to get out. It's like they're flying. It's getting hot. I better turn around. They fry midair. They're literally being burned to a crisp. Nobody cares. The greenies pay off the environmentalists. It's all good. Brian Sussman filling in on this, The Savage Nation. Government Zero. We're going to talk a little bit more about this book. Number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list, michaelsavage.com. And your calls just ahead on this, The Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
There is no time to lose, my friends. The progressive Islamist agenda has advanced into every part of America. From the White House to your local public school. And if we are to survive, this has to be stopped. Get Savage's book, Government Zero, available now. michaelsavage.com, Amazon, buy the book. Oh, let's just go back into something. If you're just joining us, thank you so much. As always, I always love speaking to this audience. It's a treat to talk to people all over the country. And I come to you from KSFO in San Francisco, Michael's flagship station. We were talking about this story. I don't know how much about this you've heard, because you're all over the United States. How much about this have you heard? This was a kid named Faisal Mohammed. The authorities were very slow to release the name because, you know, there might be some Islamophobes out there who get really carried away. It's amazing, all these attacks that have taken place on our homeland from people cut from pretty much the same cloth. Can we agree on that? I am being an observer right now. Pretty much cut from the same cloth in terms of their age and they're men a certain age and they believe in a certain religion. Okay, can we agree on that without sounding crazy? And yet, every time something like this happens, the first thing we're told, nope, no terrorism, don't go there, don't call it terrorism. We're not allowed to use our brain. See, this is government zero. Don't use your brain. Think the way we would like you to think. So here's this sheriff. You got this kid on a campus, on a University of California campus, goes nuts. He starts trying to kill people just like they're showing you how to kill people in these videos coming out of the Palestinian territories. Take a knife, take a few swipes at people, and if you die in the process, hey, you get to go see Allah. That's what he was doing, exactly what they described to do, except he also had handcuffs and he had night vision goggles and he had all sorts of other stuff. I don't know what he was planning on doing. He had a manifesto. They won't release the manifesto. They do admit in the manifesto he says Allah, but, you know, hey, listen, I mean, if he were a Christian kid, he'd probably be mentioning Jesus. Or if he were, I don't know, you pick the religion, he'd probably mention that God as well. So the fact that he's a young, nice Muslim kid doing something silly, sure, he's going to mention Allah, but don't think anything of that. Silly. The guy... You're going to hear the sheriff of Merced County actually saying that this kid was going to do something silly with a knife. He's trying to kill people, including a cop, by the way, before he got shot dead. Clip 7, please.
There was a few references to Allah, and I wanted to tell everybody, as me being a Christian, it would be like me referencing the Lord Jesus. If I'm going to go do something silly, it doesn't mean that I'm anything other than I've got a belief in a higher power, and his belief was in...
This madness has got to end. Okay, so let's go to Mike, WMAL, nation's capital. Mike, go ahead. You're on the Savage Nation. Go right ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, thank you, Brian. You're doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Trying my hardest.
What I want to point out is something that's very near and dear to me here in the state of Virginia. We have the Sons of the Confederacy. Their license plate has been declared illegal by our liberal governor because it has a rebel flag on it. And they are not allowed to get another license plate unless they turn in the old license plate because it has the rebel flag on it. Because this is a sign of prejudice now. Because of what one person did down south who shot people up. He didn't say for the glory of the South. He wasn't waving the flag, but because he owned the rebel flag, somehow that makes everybody who owns a rebel flag a racist. Now we got Faisal, who makes several references with his manifesto toward Allah, and we're told this has nothing to do with Islam. The news media and certain agencies, law enforcement agencies, which are now bowing and scraping to Obama and his boys, are making our country a joke and making us weaker and more vulnerable by the day. And when they
Mike, you're spot on, buddy. You're spot on. You are spot on. Now, thank you for your call. I was watching a football game this week, and I really enjoy. I don't like watching the NFL so much anymore because it seems like when I watch the NFL, I'm watching a bunch of gangsters. Not all of them, but too many of them. A bunch of gangsters with money, gaining applause for their God-given athletic abilities. So I like to watch college football. I'm watching Ole Miss play, the Ole Miss Rebels, and I'm thinking, how long is it going to be? Maybe some of you people in Mississippi can help me out. How long is it going to be before the federal government demands that the Ole Miss Rebels change their name? What is happening? We're just, before our very eyes, it's becoming more like Animal Farm or Brave New World. And then you've got guys like the governor of my state. I started to get into Jerry Brown a moment ago, and I got sidetracked, something that oftentimes happens with me. But Fernando is calling from California. And, Fernando, let's inform the rest of the country what's going on with our governor. The green governor, Jerry Brown, owns a very large ranch. And what did he do with state resources on his ranch, Fernando? Go ahead and tell the United States.
Oh, yeah. So he uses state resources, satellite imagery, topography, surveying to see if his private ranch might not have some green, not so green oil.
Yeah, green oil. Literally, folks, what Fernando is telling you is true. Our governor, Jerry Brown, was using state resources to determine if there was oil and natural gas on his property. Talk about hypocrisy, right, Fernando?
Oh, of course. And then they laugh about capitalism when it's really, the word is crony capitalism, but I call it crackhead communism, and the crack is greenbacks. Okay, so they're not proletariats, they're bourgeois files to clear the air. So whenever they talk about green, it's the opposite. When they talk about this, it's always the opposite.
Hey, Fernando, thanks for your call this on this Savage Nation program today. Here's the deal in California. State law prohibits elected officials from using public resources, just like Jerry Brown did, for personal purposes, regardless of the motivation. He was using state workers here in the state of California to survey his property, even do satellite imagery over his property. They were essentially acting as his own private oil prospecting team. Now, what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Oh, you'll get a story in the Associated Press. It'll be carried on, the San Francisco Chronicle and the LA Times website. LA Times may do something with it, but it's just going to be a little slap on the wrist to Jerry, and he can move about his business. That's all. No big deal. Then we've got this cockamamie. I got to tell you about this. We got this cockamamie high-speed rail plan in California. Maybe they're planning the same sort of nonsense where you live. But they wanted Jerry Brown, we got to have high-speed rail. The green governor who's prospecting for oil on his own property, we got to have the high-speed rail. So we just built a bridge here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We just completed it. It's the bridge that crosses the bay from Oakland to San Francisco. It's like 7 miles long. It replaced an old bridge that failed as it was supposed to fail during the 1989 earthquake. Now, just give you a little background on this. Stay with me. I know most of you don't live in California. Most of you will never even visit California, but this is how cockamamie things are. Got to rebuild a portion of the bridge. Okay, we can do this for under $1 billion. That was the original plan in 1990. We can do this for under $1 billion. Okay? The price grew to $6.4 billion, with financing $12 billion. We've got a beautiful bridge. No one can guarantee its seismic safety because there have been so many problems in this bridge. In the event of a major earthquake, it may fail. It really, truly may fail. So this thing went from $1 billion to $6.4 billion with financing $12 billion. So now we've got this high-speed rail. It's going to go all over the state. And they keep telling us, no, it's only going to cost. Well, now secret documents documents they were trying to keep secret were released. It's 31% higher already than they told it was going to be, and they haven't even broken ground on this thing. It's going to be $36 billion. Most engineers say 36 my rear, it's going to be closer to 100. But 36. The first leg of this thing, the first leg of this deal, it's $36 billion for the first leg, which runs from Burbank in Southern California to Merced. $36 billion for the first leg. The first leg is 248 miles. Now, I know already some of you, because you're smart people listening to the Savage Nation, you're doing the math. That's $145 million per mile to build this high-speed rail. $145 million a mile. You know how much it costs to build a mile of interstate freeway? $1 million. This is $145 million. By the foot, it's $27,000 a foot. You know how much it costs to build traditional railroad per foot? $200. This is $27,000. And then these idiots yes, they are idiots. They're running it through the Tehachapi mountain range, which is tectonically active. It's like a gigantic earthquake. They're going to build 36 miles of tunnel through this earthquake zone. And by the way, the deadline, according to our legislature, to build the tunnel is 7 years. 36 miles of tunnel in 7 years. The green governor. This is what's happening out here. Now, we had a pipeline that would have been much easier to build. It would have been paid for, not by the taxpayer, but by a Canadian oil company or a Canadian infrastructure company. It would have created jobs here in the United States of America, both short-term and long-term. It would have been great in terms of keeping us oil independent. But Barack Obama today says, nope, don't want any of that, in the name of green. These green machinations are nothing more than socialism wrapped up in another package. That's why Savage says there's no time to lose. You've got to get this book, Government Zero. Okay, let's go to the lines on the Savage Nation. This is John KKOH. Are younger voters seeing through this stuff or what? That's what you're going to talk to us about. Go right ahead.
I was going to say basically that, hey, there's a younger generation out there, and everybody calls us millennials the problem. But I with my peer groups and the people I work with, I'm seeing a revolution come along, and it's not a violent revolution. I'm saying that when we finally start moving up in the ranks of power, you're going to start seeing a lot more Republican ideals passed and moved along, because I believe that there's actually quite a few Republicans. We're just afraid to come out, because as soon as we come out, we're going to get basically bashed, shoved under the ground, put under the rug.
John, what I noticed, John, how old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay, 27 years old. So, John, what I see in guys in your age group and gals in your age group, it's not so much a traditional Republican mindset as it is more of a right-leaning libertarian mindset. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And see, this is where the Republican Party better get it in gear, because if this is where it's going, they need to get there to be able to welcome these people accordingly. Otherwise, It's going to be a third party, maybe a nationalist party, as Dr. Savage is suggesting in the book, something along those lines, because the Republican Party clearly is tone deaf. Just look at what we have now. Trump and Carson and Fiorina still have the lion's share of votes in terms of the various polls, and the Republican Party just doesn't seem to get it, right? And he's gone. Oh, are you still there, John? Go ahead. They don't seem to get it, right?
No, like from what I can see, from my group, what we want our country back. It's true. We really do. We're tired of this. We're losing the values and morals of everything that we were taught and raised upon. And it's just like, for some reason, I believe that there's just this tiny group of millennials that have all this say, but in all reality, we're the ones that are in the bigger group, and we have no say.
Listen, I am glad you're there, and I'm glad you're listening to the Savage Nation. And what people don't realize about this program, and I know because I get to see the ratings, there are a lot of younger people, a lot of millennials who listen to this program. They listen to it online. When you look at Savage's online streaming, who's doing that these days? It's the younger demo. He's got them. They're listening. They're buying Government Zero. Coming up in just a moment, an incredible caller has appeared, calling from the Netherlands, I believe, and we're going to talk to her about this immigration that's going on in Europe. We'll do that in just a moment. Brian Sussman filling in on this, The Savage Nation. Brian Sussman in for Dr. Savage. Short segment here, but I would like to get to Sharisa, who's calling from the Netherlands. She's listening to the show streaming as millions of people do to the Michael Savage Show. Sharisa, interesting you would call. We're talking about Muslim immigration, and I know by percentage, Belgium and the Netherlands have probably the largest Muslim communities in the European Union. How's this working out for you folks?
Well, it depends on where you live at. When you live in the larger cities, you're probably experiencing more of them. But if you live in a more rural area, then it depends on the area you're in. Although you hear the stories, of course, not so much on the mainstream media. You have to get it from alternative news sources. And, me and also other people that I know are starting to get very worried because we're hearing the weirdest stories, especially coming from Germany, where the immigration is totally out of hand, and also Sweden and Austria. I have seen numerous videos on YouTube where you could see the flood of the people coming in. And
oh, yes. Sharisa, could we do this? I'm so grateful for you calling on the Savage Nation. Could you hold on? I'd love to speak with you when we have a little more time in the next segment. Is that okay? I can't wait. It's always a pleasure and always a great thrill to be behind the microphone on this, the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Brian Sussman in for Savage. Michael Savage off today. It's been a wild last couple of weeks for Savage because the book came out. He's got this program, and then he's got the book, and so many who wanted a piece of Michael to talk about the book. So he's taken a couple of days off. The book, Government Zero, has rocketed right off the bat. Debuted on the New York Times bestseller list in the number 3 position. It will go higher because you're buying the book and you're reading the book, as are many. Government Zero, no borders, no language, no culture. We have a caller on hold, and to set her up, this is a wonderful caller who checked in the last hour from the Netherlands. Now, we were talking about the Muslim immigration crisis that really went off the rails in large part of Germany's decision to start bringing these people in from Syria. And we're going to get to her in just a moment. I just want to start by reading something from Savage's book because, again, it dovetails so neatly into what we're talking about. So this is right from Government Zero. This will just take a second. Progressives have long waged a war on religion as part of their Marxist agenda for an atheist socialist state. To get there, they believe they have to tear down and destroy everything that defines Western civilization as it is. They share that vision with the unlikeliest of conceivable allies, the radical Islamists. What is happening in America right now can only be described as a progressive Islamist takeover. It may be hard for most people to imagine how committed atheists could possibly be working with committed religious fanatics. Both groups would mercilessly exterminate the other under the right circumstances. We've seen how communist countries have treated religious people in the past, and we can see how the Islamofascists treat the subgroups who make up the progressive movement today. Those who don't swear allegiance to their brand of extremist Islam are killed or exiled, homosexuals thrown off rooftops, opponents beheaded or burned alive, yet everywhere we look, we see American progressives defending Islam. We'll stop right there. This is what's been going on in Europe. Progressives desire the same thing. Destroy the Western civilization. Work with the Muslims, work with the Islamists, work with the Islamofascists, and therefore we'll be able to complete this goal. Sharisa has called from the Netherlands. Now, it's always neat to see so many of you are listening, millions of you are listening right now via streaming. Savage's show just kills it when it comes to streaming. Sharisa's in the Netherlands listening to the program streaming. We were just talking to Sharisa before we had to cut her off. Sharisa, first of all, thank you for holding. And, you know, you're there. You're in the Netherlands. And I just said Belgium and the Netherlands by percentage have they have the most populous Muslim communities. How is that showing up in your daily life? How is it changing your country? What is it doing to the culture? Please talk to us.
Well, you got to see it like this, that the first migration came, of course, in the 60s, and those were mainly the Turkish people and the Moroccan people, but they came here to work. And, well, at first they were like guest migrants, you know, for a period of time working here, and they were supposed to go back. But that never happened. So you got chain migration. So you had the next, a bit the same as what you have in the U.S., with people who have migrated once to the U.S. and build up a life. So, but what you notice about these people is that the, you know, the adjustment, assimilation, as you call it, is, well, it has never been really good. You know, they have always held on to their own culture. And now with the migration flood that is coming in, see, that is just overwhelming. Because of the stories that we have been reading, stories that you don't hear in the mainstream media, because they are, it seems that they're holding information behind, such as that we hear stories that in Germany a lot of the migrants have all kinds of, bring all kinds of diseases like open tuberculosis, HIV, syphilis, you name it, and that doctors have that they have to silence about it. Otherwise, they get in trouble with the authorities. And Sweden doesn't want any more migrants in at the moment, I'm reading. But it's also the many fights at the asylum seek centers, the places where they are staying. There was one killed in Germany. There have been big fights over here in the Netherlands, but they don't pay a lot of attention to it. They say, oh, it's all incidents. So what I'm wondering about, because, you know, I see a pattern. I see the pattern that in the U.S. there's a change, so to speak. There are also Muslim communities like in Michigan and And over here you see the same. So, and you were mentioning from the book that there is an agenda going on between that there's a sort of deal going on between atheists and these Muslim people. So I'm just concerned and wondering what we are heading for here in Europe, whether it will be a civilian war or do they want a silent takeover, like a destruction of our Western civilization?
Sharissa, and by the way, we're speaking to Sharissa from the Netherlands here in the Savage Nation, Brian Sussman filling in for Michael. So, Sharissa, I mean, you're in Europe. What are people saying regarding Angela Merkel? Why do they believe that she opened these floodgates for this Islamic migration? What are folks saying?
There are different camps. There are people what we call the good mention, which means basically the good people that are standing behind her. But there are also concerned people who, are worried and don't think that this is okay what she has done, that she has opened the gate, so to speak, and that there's no limit to the migration. There's, of course, Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, who has said that the leaders in Europe are traitors to their own people for doing what they are doing now.
Right.
Yeah. So there's also...
On a daily basis, how has life changed for you in the Netherlands? You've been watching this now for a period of time. Again, as you were mentioning, in the 60s, you had Muslims coming into the Netherlands just to be guest workers. Well, they never left. They stayed. There was chain migration. I'm guessing they probably have a lot of children. That's a part of their culture. So you've probably watched this community grow before your very eyes, and they want nothing to do with the culture that you grew up in, correct?
Basically, yes. They hold on to their own culture. And I think that mainly because of their religion. So what'll happen to you? What'll happen to the people of the Netherlands? What'll happen to the people of that region? You must have conversations with your friends and talk about your people. A lot of people are scared. They are scared to speak their minds. They are also afraid to be called a racist when you speak out against it. Of course. When you criticize them. We have a politician named Geert Wilders. I'm sure you have heard of him. Oh, yes. Well, and he has the most voters in the Netherlands. So that tells me that, a whole lot of people are agreeing with him, but it's more, it's not in the open. It's more in an anonymous, you know what I mean? It's for fear of being called a hater, for fear of being called an Islamophobe, people would rather not speak about it publicly, correct? Yes. Yeah, and that's Sharissa, that same thing is happening here in the United States. Yeah. And the media goes along with it, and the government goes along with it, and everyone wants to pretend as if it doesn't exist because, oh my goodness, if you raise your voice right away, you're deemed a hater or an Islamophobe. Yeah. That's exactly what it is, and I think it's just very, very weird that it's now happening at your end and that it's happening here. So I see a global agenda behind it. Yes. Now you're just wondering who initiated this, What parties? Is it the money? Do you have to follow the money for it? I will tell you, Sharissa, I think it gets back to Michael Savage's book, and first of all, thank you for listening to this program. It's just wonderful to know that as a guest behind this microphone, I get to speak with brilliant and beautiful people like you. Second thing is, I think it has to do with Mike's book. But Sharissa, I'm going to get into that. I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much. You're the best. What a great caller. Just superior stuff here on the Savage Nation, as you would expect. Now, let me go back to Mike's book for just a moment, okay? So she said, did you hear her? This is a woman in the Netherlands. It's exactly what's happening here. You don't talk about this publicly. If you talk about this, you're a hater. What's the matter with you? Are you Islamophobe? What's the matter with you? A racist?
Don't talk about it. No, you can't do that. So there, everything's stacked against you to the point where people keep quiet, which is just how this movement has been able to flourish and grow over time. Fear, intimidation, point of the sword, beheadings, whatever it takes. Now let's go to Michael's book for just a moment. May I? Because Michael here is talking in Government Zero about how you've got the atheist Marxists working in tandem with the Islamofascists because there's the same goal, bring down Western civilization. Now, I'm going to quote right from Savage's book. Remember the driving principle of the 1960s radicals. Bring it all down, man. Both groups believe in absolute autocratic rule over the people. They want to run every aspect of your life. The progressive may be atheists and the Islamofascists, religious fanatics, but they both want to take away your freedom of religion. And they want to take away your economic freedom. If you haven't noticed, every Islamic nation has a socialist economy. That's because socialism and autocracy are one and the same. Savage, Government Zero. There you go. We'll take your calls in just a moment. I can't wait. Brian Sussman filling in on this, The Savage Nation. So now we've gotten to the story of the day. No, it's not the Keystone Pipeline. No, it's not presidential politics. It's Islam in America. You just heard a riveting interview from a woman calling from the Netherlands, listening to Savage Nation streaming live. And she told us what she's been seeing now throughout the course of her lifetime in the Netherlands. And it was chilling. And what she was doing was giving us a warning of what's going to happen in this country unless somebody stops this crazy thing. And might I add, Government Zero, Savage's book, provides 41 solutions for America. Now let's go to the callers. Mike, WVNN, thanks for checking in on this, The Savage Nation. Go right ahead. Brian Sussman filling in.
Hey, Brian, let me give your listeners something to look at. It's called the Holy Land Foundation trial in 2007. There was in a search warrant that took place in Switzerland in 1982, they discovered a document that outlined the entire takeover of the West. And it was called Islamophobia, use of the propaganda machine against the West itself. And it's exactly what they did. If they'll Google that or go online and look at the Holy Land Foundation trial, you'll find the program actually listed in there as far back as 1982. It's called Islamophobia. And on university campuses, they were actually giving out Qurans by the FBI. And if I can get an email, I'll send you guys a copy of it as far back as 2011, where the United States Attorney, the Department of Justice, and the FBI was actually handing out free Qurans at taxpayer expense.
This is all true. Everything you're telling us is absolutely true, and you're bringing back some memories that have escaped me to this point. The Holy Land Foundation. Just do your research on that, folks, and you will come up with the treasure trove, indeed, of what's happening in America today. The Holy Land Foundation. They have a lot in common with the folks at CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Go ahead and do the research for yourself, Mike. Thanks for your call on this, The Savage Nation. Well, you know, if nothing else, it is a soft invasion of America. Bob, WMAL, you're on The Savage Nation. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, hey, I got two quick things to say. We are being invaded, and every God-fearing American ought to go out and buy himself a weapon and reform. And I have a little ditty about Governor Joe Brown. Would you like to hear it real quick?
Governor Jerry Brown out here in California?
Yep.
Yep, go ahead. Governor Moonbeam. Right, go ahead.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Brown. The guy just wanted to know how much oil's in his ground. He asked his government to tell him how much oil he's got. And if he can't drill it out, he's going to grow pot.
Very good. Bob, thank you very much. We needed a laugh on The Savage Nation. That's my Governor Jerry Brown out here on the left coast. actually using state resources to determine how much oil and natural gas are on his personal property. Completely illegal, by all accounts. He won't even get as much as a slap on the wrist for it. You can bet your bottom dollar. Good job. Taking us back to the Beverly Hillbillies. Of course, Obama came out today, speaking of oil, and he said no to the Keystone Pipeline. A lot of you want to pop off on that, and I don't blame you. Such a pleasure to be behind this microphone. Brian Sussman, right here.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
All right, Brian Sussman here, filling in for Michael Savage on this, The Savage Nation. Let me just go back to the book Government Zero one more time. This is Michael's new book. It's hot. Hot, hot, hot. It's going to go from number 3 to number 1 on the New York Times list, my guess is. This thing is selling big time. Now, let me just read this from the book because it really applies nicely to what we've been talking about now on the Savage Nation. If a progressive Islamic takeover sounds unbelievable to you, I'm not surprised, Michael writes. The media continues to bend over backward to support a president who will not even say the word Islamic when he talks about the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. They call themselves Islamic, but the president says they aren't. Okay, stop there. Now, this goes back to the caller we had earlier this hour from the Netherlands listening to the Savage Nation streaming, as millions of people do. And she said, what we're seeing in our country is a slow takeover. And she said they do this by making it such that they, this nebulous they, the powers that be, they've been able to do this in such a way that if you dare talk about the Muslim immigration crisis, ooh, you must be a racist. If you dare criticize Sharia law, ooh, you must be a hater. If you show concern about your culture being eaten up by this migration, ooh, you're an Islamophobe. This is exactly what we have here. Savage nails it in Government Zero. Okay, now, let's go to Bill. Bill's calling from California. Bill's checking in on the left coast. Go ahead, Bill. You're on the Savage Nation. You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm actually calling from Connecticut. I'm listening on a California radio station.
Oh, good. Excellent. Well, you're bi-coastal. What can I say?
What I was going to say is this business of being calling racist. See, I've been hearing that for years. It used to be that when we complained about immigration, illegal immigration from South America, we were racist because we didn't want to, contaminate our culture. The fact is now we've got a vicious enemy called the Islamophobe, who are coming in here not as religious people, but to take over the country. And it's time that the Republican Party, which is the only party that I can see that it will happen, they've got to come out and call a spade a spade. They've got to say what's going on. But they're all afraid to do it, and they're all afraid of being called racist.
You're right. They won't do it. They won't do it, Bill. We might get, I don't know, I'm looking at the cast of characters running for president. You might get a Donald Trump to go there. You might get a Ben Carson to go there. Who else might? Maybe Mike Huckabee, but he's kind of out of the picture now, I guess. I don't know. Who else is going to go there? You got to go there. This is the problem of the day. This is the crisis of the day. This is the issue that will take this country down. Yes, we've got a huge debt. Absolutely. Yes, government is way too big. But the radical Islam problem is the problem that's going to take down this world. Would you agree?
Yes, I absolutely agree. And Donald Trump has taken a stand against illegal immigration. And
yes, but calling this type of illegal immigration, or better yet, calling this type of legal immigration the wrong thing to do, needs to be done. Somebody needs to say it.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
All right. Listen, thank you for your call. This is maddening. This part of the world, how do you see? Now here, you just go down this road. Oh, my God, I was listening to this guy filling in for Savage. He's nuts. He's a freaking hater. I couldn't believe it. I will just say this. I listen to women like Sharina, who called earlier in the program. Listen to her. She sounded like a very nice woman who's scared, calling from the Netherlands. I look at history. You see, conservatism is a worldview based on history. This is why Karl Marx said history means nothing. Karl Marx said, just erase history, vanquish it, don't look at it, do not look at it. But the conservative says, no, we need to look at it. We need to see what worked, what didn't work. What can we learn from history? Because as we read history, it tends to repeat itself. Can I tell you, the radicals from this particular religion are very long-suffering. You know, here in the United States, we think quarterly, don't we? Well, we get the quarterly earnings. Oh, I've got that quarterly report. Oh, I need that quarterly bonus, right? That's how we think. Got my quarterly taxes. We think quarterly. We're thinking 3 months. People from that part of the world, from that culture, are thinking 300 years. 300 years. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. I just read a headline a moment ago that said by 2020, was it 2020, Germany's going to have 20 million Muslims? Start doing the math. Those 57 Muslim countries, they weren't always Muslim countries. Some of them were Christian countries. How did they get taken over? They got taken over by immigration. They got taken over by population booms. You know, the womb, essentially. They got taken over by converting people at the sword, scaring the life out of them. That's what happens. We have to look at this. Now, I'm going to give you another story. This comes out of California Wednesday. Kid goes nuts on a college campus, UC Merced, and stabs 4 people. He does it just the way, from all accounts, the way that the Palestinians are teaching people how to do this via social media. Take a knife, try to kill people, and then you'll get shot dead and die, and you go to Allah. That's exactly what this kid did. And in his manifesto, he even talked about Allah. And here you have the media saying, no, you guys are jumping to conclusions. See, if you go where I went on this immediately, you're a hater. What's the matter with you? You're a loser. You're Islamophobe. You can't do that. And so then the sheriff from this county in California comes out and says, well, yes, there was a manifesto, and it said something about Allah, but no. Listen, if you're a Christian, you're going to talk about Jesus. What he did was silly. Silly, he tried to kill 4 people. Please, once again, listen to cut 7.
There was a few references to Allah, and I want to tell everybody, as me being a Christian, it would be like me referencing the Lord Jesus. If I'm going to go do something silly, it doesn't mean that I'm anything other than I've got a belief in a higher power, and his belief was in through the Muslim faith. And but there's still nothing to indicate that there was anything other than that.
This sheriff is cuckoo. I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody. I really don't know what's going on here. Does somebody? Was he told to say this, or else he'd lose his job? Does he fear for his own life because he's seen the intel, and if you speak out, maybe you're going to be a target? Silly? Trying to kill 4 people with a knife is silly? And how many Christians are doing this, Sheriff? I really want to know. How many Christians are going around trying to kill people in this country? Well, that's why he would have had Jesus in his manifesto if he was a Christian. I don't know of any Christians trying to do this. I know of Christians trying to avoid being killed. And then the other question is, why is it as soon as his name was released, ISIS puts out a tweet praising this guy? How does that happen? Eve is listening via KSFO in San Francisco. Eve, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, on the Savage Nation.
Yes, regarding the UC Merced stabbings, in the Oakland Tribune this morning, in big, bold, black letters, there were just 4 words, and then I'll tell you the 2 words that are missing. It says, quote, revenge fuels knife rampage. And I wrote in the margin, no, revenge against infidels fueled knife rampage. That's what's missing. Everything you've been talking about.
Because, Eve, here's the deal. Now, think about this with me. If this was revenge on the little study group that he got kicked out of, don't you think he would exact revenge upon those who kicked him out of the group? He didn't. He went after a cop. He went after a construction worker and a couple other kids. Well, what kind of revenge is that?
my point. It's against infidels, and that's what they did not put in their headlines.
Because it goes back to the caller from the Netherlands who is saying what happens is over time you become afraid to tell the truth because you don't want to look like a hater or as Islamophobe or a racist.
Is here in the Bay Area. You live here. It's the same way every place you go. Every newspaper will not tell you what their names are until they're absolutely forced, and they play it down. So get the force.
No, you're right. Now, Eve, this goes back to, if I may, goes back to what I read from Government Zero just a moment ago. The media continues to bend over backward to support a president who will not even say the word Islamic when he talks about the Islamic State. Right from Government Zero. Right from Government Zero. Barbara is calling, WDRC. Barbara, you're on the Savage Nation. Thank you for checking in. Go ahead, please.
I'm driving through Springfield, Massachusetts right now, through a sea of cars, and the police all over the country have had sensitivity training vis-a-vis Islam, not to discuss Islam. Our State Department is full of Muslims, and they have expunged the word Islamic terrorism or Islam out of all the documents in the federal government. Our president is bringing people in from Syria, over 100,000 a month. I called Homeland Security. I called the CDC. I've called everybody, and I said, "What are we do? Why are we doing this? We can't be bringing these people in here." And they say, "Oh, well, they're all refugees." We have to let all the refugees in. They have distorted our language to the degree that they can make anybody sound like anything. Because
Barbara, you're right. I feel your frustration, and my heart aches as I listen to you. Here's a woman trying to get home from work, and you can hear it in her voice. She's afraid. In her own country, she's afraid. She's living in her own country, and she's becoming fearful. And what we're seeing is just the beginning. And I hope to God she didn't give her name to any of the authorities when she called in, because now she's probably on some kind of a list. We're going to watch her. She's a hater. She's a phobe. She might go off at any moment. No, this is the absolute truth. And can I tell you something else? I know this because I have a lot of friends who do Christian work. Pastors, ministers, missionaries, whatever. And I've heard this I know a couple that this happened to, and I've heard from so many more. These refugees that are coming in the country, there are Syrian Christians. We're not letting them in. In fact, the Christians that are in this country as missionaries, and there are a lot of countries that have sent their Christian people to the United States to, when you kind of look around, we're sort of losing our Christian mojo. You know what I'm talking about here? Immorality is rampant in this country. Fewer people attending church than ever. San Francisco Bay Area is the least religious place in the entire United States. So these missionaries come here to work with people, work with families, help them out, etc. The Obama administration, what I'm about to tell you is a fact, because I've experienced through friends of mine, and I've heard it from others. The Obama administration is not renewing the visas of Christians who have religious visas in this country. He's kicking them out. He's sending them back. I have some wonderful friends from the UK who had been here for years working with families. I mean, they're just tremendous family therapists. And they come into the worst of family situations, and they're able to shore things up like that. Somebody should have done a reality show on these guys. Booted out of the country by Obama. They lawyered up. They hired the very best immigration attorneys. People were paying for these immigration attorneys to do the thing, couldn't do it. The Obama administration wanted the Christian religious workers on visas in this country out of here. It's the Savage Nation. Brian Sussman, always proud to be filling in. Got another segment yet to go on this, the Savage Nation. Brian Sussman in for Dr. Savage. Dr. Savage needed a couple days off. Can I just tell you something? He has been working it on all ends. So many people want a piece of his time with the book. And as a result, the book is skyrocketed. Debuted on the New York Times bestseller list, number 3, so that's huge. And you know how it is with the New York Times bestseller list. They really try to avoid writers like Michael, because they don't necessarily fit the template of what the media would have you believe. So that's why border language, cultures mean something, and we know that. You're a listener to this program, you know that. But what Michael Savage is saying at Government Zero is there are no borders, no language, no culture. This is the road we're going down. It must stop. Savage is not just seeing a problem, but dealing with the problem in no uncertain terms, complete with his 41 points on how to turn this ship around. I'm hoping that there are some politicians in Washington, D.C. who are reading this. In fact, I believe there are. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those is Dana Rohrabacher. He's a Southern California congressman, pretty decent guy. I mean, it's as if he's reading. I've read to you several portions from Government Zero on this version of the Savage Nation, this edition. Here's Congressman Rohrabacher. It's like he's reading from Michael's book. He's talking about this stem of Islamic immigration into Europe, and it's also occurring here. Take a listen to this.
Clearly, what we have seen over the past few months is unsustainable, and if not checked, will change the fundamental nature of European countries which are now being inundated. What we are witnessing is the destruction of Western civilization, not by an armed invasion, but instead through envelopment. The effects of this will not soon disappear, but instead could well turn out to be an historic change in the nature of many European countries.
Mm-hmm. And the United States of America, unless we do something, it starts with getting a copy of Government Zero. And then Obama's out there killing the pipeline today. Yeah, he killed that. No, he says what we need is infrastructure that, like highways and stuff. That'll produce real jobs. The beauty about the Keystone, it was going to be paid for by somebody else. And it would help us maintain our energy, or help us go towards becoming fully energy independent. So Barack Obama today gave one away to his buddies at OPEC, 12 countries that do not have our interests in mind. Our best interests are not theirs. Friends, it's always a pleasure, always an honor to serve you. Brian Sussman. Check me out via Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. KSFO.com as well. Michael, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Right here on this, The Savage Nation.
Savage.